He's contemplating, what kind of physician am I going to be? And for the first time, they start registering physicians in 1874. And Missouri is one of those places where they're registering physicians. So he has to go down to the county courthouse and he has to register as a physician. And so this is a copy of that registration. So he has to he's thinking to himself, and he thinks about it for a couple of months. He's like, what kind of physician am I going to be? What am I going to say I am when I register as a physician? And he says, I'm going to practice osteopathy. And so that's when he really made a conscious decision. That's why he says that's when I flung the banner and I stopped practicing the other methods. He has a setback in 1876. He has typhoid fever. He loses a year of his life, and he comes out from that very gaunt looking and lost a lot of weight. He had a neuropathy and walked with a cane or staff after that. They began to call him the old doctor because he turned kind of gray and looked kind of gaunt. And if you liked him, he called him the old doctor. If you didn't like him, he called him the old Indian doctor because he spoke Shawnee. He thought in Shawnee. He could read it. He could write it. His father summoned him from Missouri to come there because he could help him with the Shawnee Indian. And we know this because his daughter Blanche tells us about it. Also, his mother had Shawnee. So as he and his daughter Blanche end up having a very close relationship because he taught her this language. And she says they thought in Shawnee. Oftentimes, when he was thinking about a treatment plan, he would exclaim something in Shawnee first because he was thinking in Shawnee. He has growing success with his treatment plans, and they're working pretty well. And he's on his way back from Baldwin, where he'd been summoned to treat a family friend, and he gets a telegram from Colonel Sandy Lowe. And his wife has fallen sick there in Wadesburg, Missouri. It's there by Harrisonville. I think it's Wadesburg. It's the man's name. And so he goes and helps Sandy Lowe with his wife. And we know that Sandy Lowe's wife had double pneumonia because AT makes a note of it in one of his textbooks. Double pneumonia, often fatal. But he's able to save her life. And Sandy Lowe has been impressed with him. He's worked with him since 1861. He knows him really well. He's very impressed that he saved his wife. And he says, why don't you practice out of my home for a while? So he practices from the Lowe home, which was not that uncommon back then, for about 6 months. He practiced from other doctors' homes too. A Dr. Gunn up in Independence, Missouri, had a bad case of flux in children. And he knew AT had this treatment plan for flux. And so he summoned him, and he practiced with the Dr. Gunn there as well. So some of his concepts were catching on, and other doctors were talking about it. And they said, hey, why don't you teach this to us? We want to learn these methods that you have. And so he's thinking about starting a school.